Karoline Leavitt stepped into the courtroom, fully aware of the battle ahead. The case she was prosecuting was a high-stakes government ethics violation, with a wealthy developer accused of funneling state funds into his private ventures. The evidence was solid, but as soon as she entered Judge Howard Gates' courtroom, she sensed hostility. Gates, notorious for his sharp tongue and aggressive rulings, wasted no time in undermining her. His sarcasm dripped as he questioned her credibility, dismissing her work before she could even begin. Laughter echoed from the defense team, but Leavitt remained composed. She had faced worse. She opened her folder and began to present her case, detailing the financial discrepancies that pointed to corruption. But each time she spoke, Gates interrupted, belittling her arguments. The tension in the room was palpable. The judge was not just being difficult, he was trying to bury the case. As she observed his behavior, she realized something deeper was at play. He wasn't just being combative for sport, he had something to hide. Determined, Leavitt continued presenting her evidence, demonstrating how the defendant's company had received nearly triple the approved funding. But Gates scoffed, dismissing her findings as a waste of time. When she attempted to file a motion, he denied it outright without even hearing it. The courtroom murmured, judges could be tough, but this was outright obstruction. The jurors exchanged glances, sensing the bias. Reporters scribbled notes. This wasn't just a case anymore, it was turning into something bigger. Then Gates made a mistake. As she placed a crucial document on the projector, his expression shifted. His usual smugness vanished, replaced by something tighter, more controlled. She had struck a nerve. The document bore his signature, approving unauthorized financial transfers. The room stilled. Gates quickly ruled it inadmissible, claiming it had been mishandled. The problem? The evidence had been legally obtained through a subpoena. Leavitt did not back down. She reminded him that the media was present, that everyone in the room had just witnessed him declare critical evidence inadmissible without justification. The tension mounted, but Gates tried to regain control. That's when she reached into her case and pulled out a small recorder. She pressed play and a voice filled the courtroom. "Take care of it. I don't care how. Make sure she doesn't get her hands on those ledgers." Silence. Absolute, suffocating silence. The voice was unmistakable. It was Judge Gates. The courtroom, once tense with quiet intimidation, was now suffocating under the weight of its collective realization. The defense attorney blanched. The defendant looked pale. Even Gates, who had exuded confidence just moments ago, sat frozen. His fingers curled into fists, his jaw clenched. Leavitt seized the moment. "Your Honor," she said, her voice steady, "would you like to explain who you were speaking to?" Gates snapped. His voice, usually controlled and smug, cracked with desperation. "This is outrageous. This entire hearing is descending into chaos." Leavitt didn't flinch. "I'd say this is clarity." She produced a transcript of a wiretap, legally obtained, that corroborated everything in the recording. The judge had actively conspired to suppress evidence. The room shifted again, the balance of power tilting. The bailiff, standing at the edge of the courtroom, looked uneasy. Leavitt turned to him. "Officer Reynolds, would you kindly read the highlighted section aloud?" The bailiff hesitated, then complied. "We'll take care of her. Leavitt doesn't have anything solid yet, but if she does, I'll make sure it never sees the inside of a courtroom." Gasps. The courtroom was no longer watching a trial, it was witnessing the fall of a judge. Gates' eyes darted to the side exit. A small movement, but telling. He was cornered, and he knew it. Leavitt turned to the back of the courtroom and gave the smallest, subtlest nod. The door swung open, and footsteps echoed. A firm voice announced, "Judge Howard Gates, you are under arrest." Chaos erupted. Reporters scrambled, cameras clicked, and the jury gaped. For the first time in his career, Gates was silent. He didn't protest as officers cuffed his wrists, the metal locking shut with a finality that couldn't be undone. He muttered, "You can't do this." The officer recited his rights. Gates yanked against the cuffs, his face flushed. "I'm the law in this courtroom." Leavitt stood, adjusting her blazer. "Not anymore." The arrogance drained from Gates' face, replaced by something closer to fear. The officers led him away, but before they reached the door, the defendant, Charles Lawson, panicked. Wait. Wait. Lawson shot up from his chair, eyes darting between Gates and Leavitt. This is getting out of hand. We can work something out. Leavitt tilted her head. Work something out. Lawson swallowed hard. There's no need for a public spectacle. Leavitt studied him, then stepped forward. You seem nervous, Mr. Lawson. His forced laugh cracked. Nervous? No, this is insane. You don't actually believe Gates is guilty, do you? Leavitt let the silence stretch. Then, her voice razor-sharp, she asked, Do you? The courtroom was still. The weight of the truth pressed down on everyone present. The officers led Gates through the doors, and with his departure, something shifted. This was no longer just about one corrupt judge. It was about the entire system that had enabled him. Leavitt turned to the jury, then to the defense table. I believe we still have a trial to finish. Lawson looked as though he might faint. He glanced at his lawyer, but there was no safety net left. Leavitt asked, Would you like to continue, or would you prefer to discuss a plea? His jaw clenched. This is a witch hunt. Leavitt smiled, but it was cold. No, Mr. Lawson. This is justice. He scoffed. You think one corrupt judge changes anything? You think this means you win? She let the silence stretch again before responding. I think it means the system still works. That no matter how powerful someone thinks they are, the truth will always catch up to them. Lawson exhaled sharply but had no response. The once mighty judge's seat was empty, and his strongest ally was gone. Leavitt turned to the new presiding judge. Given today's events, I formally request permission to proceed with additional evidence. It's clear now that we need to uncover just how far this corruption reaches. A murmur rippled through the room. The trial wasn't just continuing, it was about to expose everything. Lawson's fingers tapped nervously against the table. After a long pause, he finally exhaled. If I talk, I want protection. Leavitt nodded. Then you better start talking. The courtroom had transformed. The once untouchable judge was in handcuffs. The man who thought he could control everything was now begging for a deal. The walls that had protected the corrupt were crumbling, and Karoline Leavitt had just made history.